The spark of war. Diplomatic efforts end in blood. The Galactic Empire had existed for over 10,000 years, spanning thousands of worlds and ruling over countless species with an iron fist. To them, humanity was just another upstart civilization, a minor annoyance in their grand dominion. Despite humanity's rapid technological advancements, they were still seen as a species of brash, naive newcomers, unworthy of a seat at the galactic table. That was supposed to change today. Ambassador Elias Carter adjusted his formal uniform as he walked through the grand halls of the Imperial Palace on Zovek Prime, the heart of the Empire. The towering marble columns and gilded architecture spoke of a civilization obsessed with power and decadence. Yet beneath the surface, Carter could sense the rot, the arrogance of an empire too bloated to recognize its own decline. Flanked by two human security officers, he entered the Senate chamber, a vast, circular hall where hundreds of alien delegates sat in raised platforms, whispering amongst themselves. At the highest throne, overlooking the assembly, sat Emperor Zalvorn IV, a towering, reptilian figure draped in royal robes, his cold yellow eyes fixed on the human ambassador. Carter had prepared for this moment for months. Negotiations had been tense, but he remained hopeful. Humanity had not come seeking war. They had come to secure their place in the stars through diplomacy. Stepping onto the central platform, he took a deep breath before speaking. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Empire, Carter began, his voice firm but respectful. Humanity comes not as conquerors, nor as subjects, but as equals. We seek peaceful coexistence, mutual trade, and recognition as a sovereign power. A murmur rippled through the chamber, some voices amused, others dismissive. The Empire had crushed hundreds of species beneath its rule. Why would humanity be any different? The Emperor's lips curled into something resembling a smirk. And if we refuse? Carter did not flinch. Then humanity will remain independent. We will not bow, nor will we be subdued. We only seek a future where war is unnecessary. Silence followed, stretching for several tense seconds. Then, from the Emperor's right, a noble figure stepped forward. Lord Zalvorn, the Emperor's own cousin and a high-ranking warlord, sneered down at the ambassador. "How quaint," he drawled, his voice thick with disdain. "You truly believe you are equal to us? That your frail species deserves recognition?" Carter met his gaze unflinchingly. "We have earned our place." Lord Zalvorn laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. Then, without warning, he drew a ceremonial plasma blade from his side. In one swift motion, before the human security officers could react, he slashed the blade across Carter's throat. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Carter staggered back, clutching at the deep wound as blood spilled onto the pristine floor. He collapsed, his eyes wide in shock, his final breath escaping as a choked gurgle. The chamber was momentarily silent. Then, the Emperor simply waved a hand, dismissing the scene as if it were an insignificant inconvenience. "Let that be a lesson to all who dare to defy the Empire," Lord Zalvorn declared, stepping over Carter's lifeless body. The human security officers, still in shock, reached for their weapons, but before they could retaliate, they were immediately subdued by the Emperor's guards. They would be executed within the hour. The event was broadcast live across the Empire and beyond. Within minutes, the message reached Earth. The response. The United Terran Federation's war room was silent as the footage played. High-ranking military officials, intelligence officers, and government leaders watched in stunned silence as Carter's throat was slit in full view of the galaxy. President Alexander Ward, a hardened leader forged in the fires of human conflict, stood at the center. His expression remained unreadable as the video looped. The rage in the room was palpable. The silence broke as Fleet Admiral Sarah Callahan slammed her fist against the table. This was not a mistake. This was a message. Secretary of Defense Ethan Raines nodded grimly. "They think we're weak. That we'll beg for mercy like the others." The president exhaled slowly, his hands clenched behind his back. He turned to face the assembled leaders. "They've made a grave mistake. He stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of history. They have mistaken our kindness for weakness. They will not live to regret it. There was no debate, no hesitation. The decision was made in that moment. Humanity had tried diplomacy. It had been met with bloodshed. Now, the total war protocols were enacted. Across human-controlled space, fleets were mobilized, weapons were primed, and soldiers prepared for battle. Humanity had always fought for survival. This would be no different, except this time, they would not stop until the Empire was reduced to ashes. The Galactic Empire had drawn first blood, the wrath of humanity. The first strike, the Galactic Empire had ruled through fear for millennia. Conquered species either submitted or were wiped from existence. They had faced countless rebellions, crushed defiant civilizations, and established themselves as the undisputed masters of the known galaxy. They believed humanity would be no different. They were wrong. Mobilization. The moment President Ward declared war, the total war protocols activated across the United Terran Federation, UTF. Factories shifted to wartime production, churning out ships, weapons, and war machines at an unprecedented rate. Every fleet was mobilized, every soldier called to arms. Humanity had prepared for this moment, not because they sought war, but because they always knew war would eventually come to them. Unlike the bloated, outdated Imperial Navy, which relied on sheer numbers and centuries-old tactics, the UTF fleet was designed for surgical precision. It was smaller but faster, smarter, and deadlier. Every ship was equipped with advanced AI, coordination, electromagnetic railguns, and next-generation stealth technology. The Empire expected a slow, hesitant response. They expected negotiations, protests, or perhaps a symbolic skirmish. Instead, humanity launched a decapitation strike that shattered the Empire's confidence in a single night. The assault on Tyrants shipyards. The Tyrants shipyards were the lifeblood of the Imperial fleet. Located on the edge of Imperial-controlled space, this massive orbital facility supplied the bulk of the Empire's warships. It was heavily defended by automated turrets, patrol fleets, and planetary shields. It didn't matter. At 0200 Galactic Standard Time, the first wave of UTF stealth cruisers slipped past Imperial defenses. Utilizing advanced adaptive camouflage, they remained undetected until they were already inside firing range. Targeting priority, command nodes, and power stations. No warning shots. Fleet Admiral Sarah Callahan issued the order, her voice calm, precise. Within seconds, orbital railguns fired. Hypervelocity slugs tore through the station's infrastructure, slicing through command centers and weapon platforms before alarms even had a chance to sound. Then came the orbital shock troopers. Launched from drop pods, these elite soldiers descended onto the shipyard in an iron rain. Their exosuits, reinforced with reactive plating and powered servos, made them faster and stronger than any Imperial counterpart. Armed with kinetic rifles and plasma cutters, they cut through the defenders like a scythe through grain. The Imperial forces were caught completely off guard. They had expected a fleet engagement, not a surgical planetary assault. Within an hour, the shipyards were in flames. The UTF didn't just destroy them. They hacked into the Imperial shipyard databases, extracting classified schematics, fleet locations, and logistical weaknesses before initiating a full self-destruct sequence. By sunrise, the Tyrants shipyards no longer existed. The Empire's shock. The Imperial Senate was in chaos. Emperor Zalvorn IV sat upon his throne, his claws gripping the armrests as reports flooded in. The destruction of Tyrants shipyards wasn't just a loss, it was a declaration. Humanity had not just retaliated. They had crippled the Empire's shipbuilding capacity in a single night. How did this happen? The Emperor snarled, his voice barely concealing his rage. His admiral stammered, offering excuses. They had underestimated the humans. Their technology was beyond expectations. Their tactics were unpredictable. None of it mattered. The damage was done. Even worse, whispers of rebellion had begun among the Empire's subjugated species. The Kethari, an avian race forced into servitude centuries ago, had begun secret communications with the UTF. If one species rebelled, others would follow. The cracks in the Empire's foundation had begun to spread. The Battle of Proxima, determined to crush humanity before the war could escalate further, the Emperor ordered a full-scale counterattack. A fleet of 300 Imperial warships was dispatched to Proxima Centauri, one of humanity's key colonies. They expected an easy victory. What they got was a bloodbath. As the Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace, they were met with silence. No resistance, no defense fleet, just the vast emptiness of space. Then, without warning, humanity struck. Using their superior understanding of electronic warfare, UTF AI systems hacked into the Imperial fleet's communication networks, blinding their sensors and jamming their targeting systems. Imperial ships drifted in confusion as invisible forces moved around them. Engage railgun barrage. The UTF's warships, hiding behind a nearby asteroid belt, opened fire. Hypervelocity rounds tore through Imperial hulls, detonating fuel cores and breaching oxygen reserves. Then came the second phase. UTF corvette squadrons, smaller and faster than anything the Empire had ever faced, weaved through the chaos, picking off Imperial cruisers with pinpoint missile strikes. By the time the Empire regained control of their systems, half their fleet was gone. The remaining ships attempted to retreat, but UTF interdiction fields locked them in place. They were trapped. The last surviving Imperial admiral sent a desperate transmission to the Emperor. "We're being slaughtered. They are not fighting for survival. They are fighting for extermination." The message cut off. The fleet was gone. The message is clear. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire had suffered a true defeat. The UTF made sure the entire galaxy saw what had happened. They broadcasted the wreckage of the Imperial fleet, the ruins of Tyrants shipyards, and footage of the Emperor's own forces being utterly destroyed. The tides of war shift. The Empire trembles. The Galactic Empire had never known fear until now. For centuries, they had ruled with unquestioned dominance, crushing rebellions before they could gain traction, subjugating entire species with overwhelming military might. But humanity was different. The UTF didn't just fight. They dismantled. They adapted. They annihilated. The destruction of the Tyrants shipyards and the Battle of Proxima had crippled the Empire's war machine, shaking their foundation to its core. For the first time in millennia, their enemies weren't begging for mercy. They weren't seeking peace. They were hunting, and the Empire was the prey. Psychological warfare begins. The United Terran Federation, UTF, understood something the Empire did not. War was not just fought on battlefields. It was fought in the mind. Even as fleets clashed in space, humanity unleashed its most devastating weapon, information warfare. Using advanced AI infiltration programs, human intelligence forces hacked into the Empire's networks, broadcasting their victories across every Imperial world. The Emperor had tried to suppress reports of his defeats, but the truth spread like wildfire. Holoscreens across the Empire's cities flickered to life, displaying brutal footage of burning Imperial warships, fallen noble houses, and UTF forces marching through conquered strongholds. Then came the message. Your Emperor is not invincible. Your Empire is not eternal. You are slaves to a rotting regime that will leave you to die for its pride. Stand with us, and you will live. Stand against us, and you will burn. Panic spread. Imperial soldiers began questioning their orders. Governors feared uprisings. Civilians, once blindly loyal to the Emperor, started to whisper of rebellion. And in the shadows, a revolution was already beginning. The defection of the Kethari. The Kethari, a proud avian species, had been enslaved by the Empire for centuries. Forced to serve as shock troops and expendable labor, they had been brutally suppressed time and time again. But now they saw something the Empire had never shown them before. Hope. UTF operatives had been secretly meeting with Kethari resistance leaders, offering weapons, intelligence, and, most importantly, a chance to fight back. The Kethari knew the risks. If they failed, the Empire would exterminate them. But after seeing Proxima burn, After watching humanity tear through Imperial fleets like they were nothing, they made their choice. And so, on the night of the eclipse, the Great Ketheri uprising began. Armed with UTF-supplied weaponry and tactics, Ketheri rebels overran Imperial garrisons on 5 occupied worlds. They hijacked starships, executed their overseers, and sent a single message to the UTF. We are no longer slaves. We fight with you. It was the first major defection in the Empire's history, and it would not be the last. The siege of Zelthar Prime. The Empire had to respond. If they showed weakness, more species would rise up. They could not afford another loss. So the Emperor ordered his forces to hold Zelthar Prime at all costs. A major supply hub deep within Imperial space, Zelthar Prime was a fortress world, protected by planetary shields, orbital defense platforms, and an army of over 3 million Imperial soldiers. The Emperor believed the UTF wouldn't risk attacking such a stronghold. The Emperor was wrong. Commence planetary assault. The UTF didn't bother with a conventional siege. They knew the Empire expected them to bomb the defenses, to engage in a prolonged ground campaign. Instead, they shut the planet down. UTF cyber warfare teams hacked the planet's power grid, shutting off shields and defenses. Stealth bombers destroyed supply depots in precise, coordinated strikes. EMP warheads crippled communications, leaving the Imperial garrison blind and leaderless. And then the orbital shock troopers landed. Thousands of elite UTF soldiers, enhanced with cybernetic augmentations and exosuits, dropped onto the planet in high-speed assault pods. The Imperial forces never stood a chance. The battle lasted 6 hours. Zelthar Prime fell, and with it, the last hope of Imperial victory. The Emperor's desperation. In the Imperial throne room, Emperor Zalvorn IV stood in silence. His empire, his legacy, was crumbling. The Senate was in chaos. Some demanded peace talks. Others, blinded by arrogance, still believed victory was possible. The Emperor knew better. Humanity wasn't just fighting to win. They were fighting to destroy. And so, in desperation, he gave the order. Deploy the planet crackers. The planet cracker weapons, hidden deep within the Empire's vaults, were capable of rendering entire worlds uninhabitable. They had only been used once before, long ago, to wipe out an entire species. If the Empire was to fall, it would drag humanity down with it. But the Emperor underestimated one thing. Humanity already knew. The preemptive strike. The Terran Intelligence Agency had intercepted Imperial communications days ago. They had already planned for this. Before the planet crackers could be activated, UTF Spec Ops teams infiltrated the Imperial vaults. They didn't just disable the weapons. They turned them against the Empire. On the dawn of the next cycle, 3 Imperial core worlds erupted into firestorms. Billions of Imperial citizens watched in horror as their own weapons were used against them. The message was clear. You sought to exterminate us. Instead, you have doomed yourselves. The end is near. The Emperor's grip on power shattered. His fleets were decimated, his armies crushed, and his people, once loyal to the throne, now cried for his head. And in the dark void of space, humanity's final fleet moved toward the Imperial capital, the fall of an empire. No mercy, no retreat. The United Terran Federation's final fleet arrived at the heart of the Galactic Empire with the precision of an executioner's blade. Zovek Prime, the Empire's throne world, stood as a testament to centuries of dominance. Its vast cities stretched across continents, its orbital defense stations bristled with weapons, and its skies swarmed with Imperial warships. But none of it would save them. For humanity, this was not a battle. This was extermination. The last stand of the Empire. Emperor Zalvorn IV watched from his war room as the Terran fleet emerged from hyperspace. The largest force humanity had ever assembled, battlecruisers, dreadnoughts, and thousands of assault craft, all converging on his world. His generals tried to reassure him. We still have planetary shields, one of them shouted. Our orbital fleet outnumbers them 2 to 1, another insisted. But they all knew the truth. Numbers didn't matter. Not anymore. The UTF had proven time and again that their tactics, technology, and sheer ruthlessness outmatched anything the Empire could muster. They had dismantled the Empire's war machine, shattered its morale, and turned its own people against it. This was no longer a war. It was a culling. The assault begins. The battle started with a tactical precision strike. Before the first Imperial ship could fire, UTF cyberwarfare units launched an all-out assault on the planet's defense grid. Targeting systems failed. Imperial ships turned blind. Orbital shields collapsed. The planet was exposed. Communication lines severed. Imperial forces were thrown into chaos. Then came the fleet bombardment. UTF railguns and kinetic warheads rained down on Zovek Prime, reducing entire city blocks to rubble. Military bases, weapons depots, and command centers were obliterated in seconds. The Empire tried to respond. Their fleets launched a desperate counterattack. It didn't matter. UTF warships outmaneuvered them, cutting through their formations with ruthless efficiency. Imperial cruisers exploded in fireballs, their wreckage spiraling into the planet's atmosphere. The once mighty Imperial Armada was reduced to floating debris in under 3 hours. The Emperor's last gamble. In the depths of his palace, Emperor Zalvorn IV faced a decision no ruler had ever faced before. He could surrender, but he knew humanity wouldn't accept it. He could flee, but there was nowhere left to run. Instead, he activated the final protocol. Deep beneath the palace, the Empire's last planet cracker warhead sat armed and waiting. If he couldn't rule, then he would deny humanity their victory by reducing Zovek Prime, and himself to dust. He entered the final launch sequence. "I will not die a prisoner," he whispered. But just as his claw hovered over the activation pad, the doors behind him exploded inward. A squad of Terran Spec Ops soldiers stormed in, their black armor reflecting the dim glow of the war room. Their leader, Commander Elias Carter Jr., stepped forward. His father, the slain diplomat, had been the war's first casualty. Now he would ensure it had its last. The Emperor lunged for the detonator, but Carter was faster. A single railgun shot ripped through Zalvorn's chest, sending the mighty ruler sprawling to the floor. As the Emperor gasped his final breaths, Carter looked down at him. "This is for my father." He fired again. The reign of Zalvorn IV ended with a thunderous silence. The execution of the Senate. With the Emperor dead, the remaining Imperial Senate tried to negotiate their surrender. The UTF gave them their answer. They dragged every senator from their chambers and executed them in the streets of their ruined capital. The message was clear. There would be no survivors, no reparations, no negotiations. The Empire had declared war on humanity, and humanity had ended the Empire. The dawn of a new order. The war was over. Across the galaxy, Imperial worlds surrendered or were burned to the ground. Entire species that had once cowered under the Empire's rule now rose to reclaim their freedom, with human soldiers standing beside them. And in the ruins of the once great capital, the flag of the United Terran Federation was raised above the Imperial Palace. A new age had begun, one where humanity ruled, and they would never be underestimated again.